Well, let's now turn to another aspect of trade in Asia. The big question here we've been asking for a few years now, will the U.S. reconsider trade agreements in the region? A new bipartisan report from the Asia Society proposing changes to the CPTPP, or the Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, that might increase U.S. support for rejoining while still serving as a potential check on China. Let's bring in Wendy Cutler, Asia Society Policy Institute Vice President. Wendy, it's been an interesting journey when you think about where the TPP was, how long it's been the U.S. pulling out under President Trump. Now you've got this report that you have penned essentially with somebody who was within the Trump administration about potentials for joining. What does that outline look like?
So our view is that it's time for us to relook and rethink about re-entry into this trade pact, which is now in place among 11 countries without us. We feel that things have changed in the region, in the United States, since we withdrew from TPP 6 years ago. And frankly, we're losing our economic competitiveness in the region, as well as our economic influence in the region.
And so what would the U.S. rejoining do, given obviously what we're seeing with some of these regional agreements like RCEP coming into play?
It would give us a seat at the table to help shape the rules for trade and investment going forward. Countries are doing it without us, including China. I think we're losing out there. And we're also losing out from all the tariff cuts and supply chain connectivities these countries are forging through these agreements. And so I think it's something worth considering. I have no doubt it's going to be difficult, but I think it's time to restart that conversation.
Wendy, when you think about the opposition to the original TPP, it wasn't just Republicans. There were Democrats like Bernie Sanders who were also opposed to it. So what specific changes are you proposing to the existing trade pact that you think will get Democrats and Republicans back on board?
Mm-hmm. And remember, since we left the TPP, Congress overwhelmingly supported and voted in the USMCA, which is the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, which improved the original NAFTA. So some of the suggestions in our report come directly from the USMCA, which was embraced by the progressive part of the Democratic Party, including stronger rules on labor, the environment, on rules of origin, on digital trade. So again, we think things have changed over the past 6 years.
Wendy, we were just showing member countries that are part of CPTPP right now. You've also got China applying for membership earlier this year. When you talk about these potential changes that will get American lawmakers on board, what's the likelihood that these members will say, sure, we're on board with those changes too?
Again, it's going to be a tough road ahead, but I do have confidence, given that the USMCA came into effect, voted on by Congress in a bipartisan way with a lot of votes. And so it gives me optimism about a TPP, a revised TPP for the United States in the future. We're also engaged right now in the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework negotiations with 13 other partners in the region. And our view is the IPEF also could be something that could be built on through the revisions we suggest in our paper.
And Wendy, what do you see as the biggest headwinds for getting some of these things that you'd like to see in there passed, given the sort of the appetite we have right now for a lot of domestic policy in the US really taking focus right now?
Yeah, again, there's just domestic headwinds against trade in general. Polling suggests that the U.S. is slowly coming back to recognizing the benefits of trade, particularly during all the supply chain disruptions we experienced during COVID. But also, I think there's a recognition that we need to do more at home to enhance our competitiveness, to help those left behind trade to have sufficient opportunities for adjustment. And many of those kind of tools need to be affected through domestic policies, not through trade agreements. So through domestic policies and through trade agreements, we think they should go hand in hand.
Wendy Cutler, Asia Society Policy Institute Vice President. Good to have you on the show today. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.